Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, you are here today for a Facebook Live. We have a great guest today. We're having some major difficulties with getting her on, but we're going to have a great show today. Once again, the cavalry ain't coming. The creek is rose, the levee has given way. It's up to us to save us. Today, we're going to be talking about education, how it's important, how education is important to our youth. Is it important? How do we can communicate with our youth? What is the state of our school systems? Where are our school systems doing? Why are our youth not excelling in this environment? So, without any further ado, we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about, we're going to bring Dr. Jackson in. She's in the process of logging on. We had some Facebook problems, but we want to make sure that all of your questions get answered. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. So, get your family together, get your kids together. Ask your kids some questions. Tag 3 or 4 people. Let them log in. If she can't log in, she'll be able to talk to me through the phone. And we're going to talk and have a dialogue about how we can encourage our youth and what is the state of the youth today in our school system. What is the state today in our education system? So Mrs. Jackson is in the process of logging in. And she's, like I said, once again, you have to excuse us, we're trying to log in, but she has some great information that I did not want to take lightly. Just giving you some updated information. We will be having a Facebook Live next week. We're going to have some businesses on next week. We're also going to be showcasing a major business that is really impacting our community. And the second thing we're going to be doing is we're going to go into a whole program of what does it take in order for us to be financially wealthy. And we're going to start bringing on banks and things of that nature so where you can utilize all of those type of things that you need. So what we're going to do is starting next week, we're going to have one in November, the month of November. We're going to have a class to where you're going to physically be able to come out, get your credit, get a bank loan. If you're trying to get a bank loan or if you're trying to purchase a home before the holidays is over, we will be able to assist you. Okay. We will be able to come out to our seminars. It's going to be updated on my website, and it's also going to be on Facebook. So make sure that you're paying attention to what we're doing. You're going to be able to work on your credit. You're going to be able to get lines of credit if you have a business. We're going to be able to assist you with that. We're going to be also to set you up with business lines of credit. Okay, so if you are trying to get some money or cash to get involved in business, we want to be a one-stop shop for you. If you are trying to get involved with buying and selling houses and getting a situation where you're trying to come up with the cash, we're going to be able to help you starting next week. We have some hard money lenders. We have some credit repair companies. We have some banks that is going to be lending you the money so you can bet on yourself. The cavalry ain't coming. The creek and rose and the levee has given way. I want to thank you for supporting me throughout this whole time. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to come into your home and for you to get the opportunity to listen to some of the best in the business that's doing it. So Mrs. Pamela Jackson, we're having technical difficulties in reference to her logging on. So I have her on my cell phone. But she has some great information, and I had some questions that I wanted to ask her. Pamela, are you still here? Pamela? Yes. So she Pamela, you can't you have to speak to me through my phone, okay? Okay. So Pamela, Dr. Jackson is you getting a little bit of feedback from me? We're just going to do it over the phone, Pamela. Okay. So one of the things that Pamela, she's Dr. Jackson. She is a educational doctor. She has some major books that she have came out. She's also a substitute teacher. Well, not a substitute teacher, but she also does um, training and education for kids that from Pamela, am I right? From K through what grade?
Fourth, I'm sorry.
K through fourth grade. So Pamela, they can my audience can kind of hear you from my cell phone, okay? So what we're gonna do is be able to talk to you through my cell phone because we cannot, you can't get on through our computer unless we're able to pop you in, okay? So without any further ado, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Pamela?
Yes, good evening. I first wanted to say thank you for having me on your show tonight. I was born and raised in Central Indiana. Got my bachelor's of science in therapeutic recreation at IU in Bloomington. I got my master's of science in administration.
Could you speak up, Pamela? Okay.
Yes, I said I got my master's of science in administration. Through Central Michigan University.
Okay. So, okay.
Then I received my doctorate in 2019 from Oakland City University in educational leadership.
Okay, so she has a degree in educational leadership. So, what was your dissertation in, Pamela?
My dissertation basically was we looked at teachers and their perceptions of why elementary students of color have difficulty with literacy.
Okay. Is there a crisis in literacy today? Is there a crisis in our education system in literacy today?
According to Reading Fundamental, there is a crisis in literacy. The literacy rates are declining. And in the United States, mostly it affects children from racial and lower income backgrounds. However, not only are children affected, there's approximately 93 million adults that read at or below the basic level to contribute to our society.
So you're saying that 93 million people in the United States are reading below the reading level that should be there?
I'm saying there's more than that. There's approximately 93 adults. And on top of that, you have the mostly children from racial and lower background levels that are being affected.
Wow.
So according to Reading Fundamental, we do have a reading crisis in the United States.
Okay. So if there is a reading crisis here in the United States, what age do they start to identify that these kids cannot read to the level that they need to be?
Well, to demonstrate just how important it is and the impact of literacy, we have a child's life. And Reading Fundamental suggests that we look at a child at age 3. From a wealthy family, they have approximately, 30 million more words than children from the poorer families.
Okay, so hold on. So I want to make sure that my audience is getting this. She's telling us, Dr. Pamela Anderson is telling us, which is an educational person, she's saying that how many more words that a rich family have than a poor family has?
A child from a rich family at age 3 speaks 30 million words more than a child from a poor family.
Did you hear what she just said? At the age of 3, they speak almost 30 million words more than a person that is not from a family of having influence. Now, once again, we're seeing that the Calvary ain't coming. It's up to us to save us. The creek has rose, and she's giving us examples. She's giving us numbers that what statistics show of why we are below the reading level and our counterparts in other countries and other kids are performing above. I often ask the question, if the standard is at 4th grade, and maybe you can answer this, Mrs. Dr. Jackson, if the standard is the 4th grade level, if you got to read at a certain level. My question is, what makes that level the level that everybody needs to be on? Why can't it be lower? Because if nobody's reading on that level, why is that bar set so high?
Well, you got to look at the educational system itself. And we can talk about ed reform. In 2002, President Bush signed the No Child Left Behind. And then Barack Obama in 2010, he comes along and he signs the Race to the Top. Now, the challenge was to call for equity of educational opportunities for all children. And that continues to be the challenge. Now, when you look at why it failed, and this is the critical piece right here, they failed to require highly qualified teachers to deal with cultures and the individual differences of children.
Okay, so you're saying that No Child Left Behind was a failure because of the inability of teachers to properly deal with the culture of these kids that was coming into these new school systems, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Learning style is not dictated by our race. It's not dictated by our income. It's not dictated by our marital status. Culture is the driving force.
So
our curriculum needs to be more culturally related and connected to the method and the learning styles of the teachers. The learning methods need to be connected to the learning styles of the students.
Okay, so you saying that little Johnny is by Shaquita, and they both are in the same class, right? Shaquita's black, Johnny's white. So you're saying that the teacher who's in front of these kids identify with the culture and the language of Johnny, and he or she doesn't identify with Shaquita because Shaquita speaks a different language, which she's not able to communicate with Shaquita the way she communicates with Johnny, which in return, lower grades, lower test scores, inability to function in a classroom to where Shaquita is or Samuel can't produce, correct? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And there's research that shows us that our students are getting more diverse and our teachers are not. You take a white teacher and a black teacher, and they both evaluate a black student. The white teacher is not going to most likely will not find that black student college material, whereas the black teacher will. She sees the ability.
Wow.
And you can look at long-run impacts of same-race teacher research. We did one, and we looked at, it published how the black students were randomly assigned to teachers in grades K through 3.
Okay.
7% are more likely to graduate from high school, and 13% to enroll in college than their peers that was assigned to a teacher that wasn't the same race.
So you're saying that when we have black teachers teaching black kids, that kid is 7 to 10% more likely to go to college?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I want y'all to make sure I want y'all to understand what she just said. Our education system is broken because we are not involved in our education system. A lot of times we blame our kids for not producing the grades, but really as parents, we need to be involved and we need to have the proper structure where our kids can go in and produce. So what she is saying is that when we have black teachers teaching black kids, then there is a greater chance that your child will learn and become equipped to go to college. And that's the end goal for all of us, right? So when me and you were talking earlier, Miss Dr. Jackson, you were saying that African-American kids think from one side of their brain and other kids think from the other side of their brain. So could you kind of elaborate on that?
I sure will. There's a $1 million question, and I just love the work that Dr. Kuhn G. Fu did. He says the question is, what makes the Black student unique? What makes them unique? The answer is a large percentage of them are right-brained thinkers. A large percentage of them are right-brained thinkers.
So what does that mean? What does that mean? So for our audience that since they might not understand it. So what do they mean? What do you mean when you say that?
What I mean by that is an individual. Let's talk about an individual that is left-brained. They say left-brained and right-brained. An individual who is left-brained is said to be logical, analytical, objective, more organized, and more cautious. Thus, the left brain is used for language and logic, critical thinking, numbering, reasoning. Mm-hmm. It also says it's the mindset. Okay, so we talk about the mindset thing. And the individual with the right brain is said to be intuitive, thoughtful, subject.
Wow.
More likely to follow their own feelings. See, the right brain is used for recognizing faces, expressing emotions, music, reading emotions, color, creativity, and it also says that they're more likely to have a growth mindset. And I'm excited about that.
Wow. So you're saying that these kids that they say can't learn, it's not that they can't learn, is that they're learning a different way than their counterparts, which is all right, but you got to harness and support that learning style, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What I'm saying to you tonight is that learning style is not dictated by race, it's not dictated by income, marital status. Culture is the driving force. We've got to somehow make sure that the curriculum is more culturally related and that it is connected to the teacher's message is connected to their learning style.
So you're saying that culture is the number one reason why our kids are being left behind?
Yes.
Well, did you guys hear that? Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a child that's cutting up in your school, you need to get that child, grab him by the hand and say, I'm sorry. Grab that kid and say, I'm sorry. We're going to filter and foster that creativity that you have. It's not that we have to put our kids on Ritalin in order for them to calm down. They're just not learning the way that the white counterparts are learning. That's what she's saying. That's what she's saying. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, the cavalry ain't coming. The creek is rose and the levee is giving way. It's up to us to save us. We have to take ownership of our own community. We have to start having teachers that are relatable to our kids. Our kids. I remember, what would you guys say, Mr. Jackson? Dr. Jackson?
You said you remember. Go ahead. You're going to say
what? Well, I was going to say, I remember growing up, because I got held back when I was in the 5th grade. And one of the things that I had to psychologically get through is that I thought that I was stupid or illiterate and I couldn't read, which I could not. But what happened is my teacher, now that I think about it, my teacher never had an opportunity to see the greatness that was in me. It was never, long as I could run up and down the basketball court or play on the football field or run down the track, they would pass me right along. So when I got to college, I was never challenged academically. So once again, I'm telling you that I probably had a 4th or 5th grade education, and here I am in college. And it wasn't until my fraternity brothers and other people that I surrounded myself with began to understand that this guy he's really intelligent, but he has a reading problem. And not a learning problem, a reading problem. And those are two separate things, or are they, Dr. Jackson?
Oh, yes, they are very, very much two different things. If you say, how do we help our students right now, based on what you just said, we can make sure that they don't get caught up in the belief gap.
Okay.
And it's simply this. Imagine being told that your kind won't amount to anything. Imagine your teacher always telling you that you needed medication, that you were stupid, and that you didn't have the ability to graduate from high school. The student that I did the most research on, his name was Jabari Walters. And he said that they told me that I wouldn't succeed, and I listened. He said, thankfully, someone disagreed. After going to 26 different elementary schools, he finally ran into a teacher that told him that he could do it.
Wow.
And found out that he was right.
So you're saying that 26 different high schools, 26 different schools, elementary schools.
Is now in construction. In 2019, he was still studying at the University of Louisiana State. And he talked about how his experience of having 26 different elementary schools and how the teachers always told him that he wouldn't amount to anything. And then when he got in about the 8th grade, he had a teacher that seemed that he had a musical ability that was, off of the chart. And he incorporated that in his learning. And now this young man is in construction management.
Wow. So we have...
Poverty is not destiny.
Okay.
Poverty is not destiny.
Okay.
And around the world, we have these students feeding the eyes because somebody believed in them. So we got to make sure our kids don't get caught up in that.
Okay. So I have one of the questions and one of the statements, and I want you to respond to this. And I think he's an educator, and he won an award, Martin Sam Jr. I'm going to read what he says. It's right here on our screen. He says, Now that is true that Black students relate better to their own. The problem is we have to have the passion for teaching, and many Blacks, especially males, are not entering the profession. So once again, that's a good thing to point out. It's up to us to save us, right? The cavalry ain't coming. The creek them rose and the levee is giving way. We are talking about generational wealth tonight, but we're talking about it from an educational standpoint. Dr. Jackson is telling us, she's telling us that our youth are not stupid. She's telling us a solution to our problem in our education system is not the economy. It's not the books. It's not the school that might not have the proper water or sewage or anything like that. She said that you have to identify with the culture of that kid in order to get through and unlock the mastery of his brilliancy through that particular academic arena. That's where we're missing our kids at. We are not realizing that they're brilliant in the way that they communicate right where they're at. That's what she's saying. So what is some of the things? Okay, so now we've identified the problem, okay? You gave out some great numbers. You said because these kids are later going to become adults, you have an illiterate kids that are that don't believe in themselves, that don't bet on themselves. Now that kid is an adult and they still not betting on themselves because they don't believe in the education system that they've been experienced to, right? So what should we do once we identify that these kids can learn, they do have talent, and actually they're brilliant? So what should we do?
We need to look at two other things.
Okay, what?
That belief gap. One of them is talented, low-income, gifted and talented low-income students. It's very likely that in a lot of places around the United States, low-income and minority children are considerably underrepresented in these programs. There was a study done in Norwood County Public Schools in Florida. Mm-hmm. Blacks and Hispanics represented 60% of the student population. Only 28% of the third graders who had been recognized as gifted were Black or Hispanic. The total population had 60% of them.
Wow.
Yes, only 28% of the third graders.
So 28, I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. 28% of the 60% of the gifted and talented, only how many of those kids that were African American were considered gifted and talented?
28, and the student population was 60% of them.
Wow. Do you guys catch what she just said? The Calvary ain't coming, ladies and gentlemen. The creek is rose and the levee has given way. It's up to us to save us. This is too, after everything that we done, we had these children. No child has to come here on their own. And so we have to do a better job of getting involved with our kids and making sure that our kids see us in their system, in their school system. We have to have more, like Martin Sam Jr. said, one of the guys that wrote in. I think he's a teacher. We have to have more teachers involved in the education profession. Okay? Because that's where our economy is going to start to turn. Okay? And it's almost like, I went into the school system a couple of weeks ago, and it's like when you have Hispanic kids that don't speak English, they have a special person that speaks Spanish for that particular person, for those kids. So that goes to show that numbers and your economic power do matter. So what we have to do in our community is start to do the exact same thing that everybody else does. We have to stop criticizing our students and start putting them on Ritalin and stop saying that they can't learn and say, no, they can learn, and it's on you to teach my child. Because if you're not passionate about doing it, then, you're almost like shooting yourself in the foot. I remember when I was raising my daughters and they was in the school system. I remember me and my wife, we would go to our PTO meetings, and one of the reasons why we got really involved, Dr. Jackson, is because we put our kids in a private school, and the teacher just didn't know how to communicate to our kids. And when we had our PTO meeting, they were saying that all of these things was the matter with our kid, and I'm like, no, they're doing what they're supposed to do. And the teacher bust out to crying because we said that our kids can learn. She literally bust out to crying because we said that our kids can learn, and we wasn't prescribing to what she said our kids were. So we got to understand that even though we want to put our kids in a private school, and I'm all for that. I'm all for making sure that your kids has opportunities that other kids don't. I'm okay with that. But what happens when you think that your kid is in this great school and your kid is not learning? Then that's where the problem becomes. Okay.
Yes.
So
that takes us into the second thing that you have to watch with this belief gap, and that's implicit biasness. It contributes to the belief gap.
What did you say now?
A study done at Yale, and it showed that racial biasness in America, a black preschooler, I'm talking about preschooler, they're more likely, 3 times likely, to be suspended than their white counterpart.
Wow.
So I'm talking about preschool.
Preschool.
Listen to this study. There was 130 preschoolers. They had watching videos, and it was clips of children in a classroom. Now, the children were all actors. So when they told the teachers to look for signs of challenging behaviors, that's what they wanted to find. So they looked at the equipment, the tracking, gazing. The teachers used up more time looking at black children than white children, especially black boys.
Wow.
Now, the leading researcher was Gillum, and he said this demonstrates that teachers expect problems from black children, especially black boys. And see, these biases, they might be unintentional, and the expectations that the teachers put on these students can drastically affect their outcomes and their success. That's what I'm saying. You know,
Okay.
and it don't start with black men and police. This implicit bias. It starts with black preschoolers and their teachers.
Hold on now. So I want to make sure that you guys understand what she just said. And Dr. Jackson, could you make sure that I get that information, because I'm going to post it on my website where you're pulling this information from, okay?
I sure will.
But what she just said, police brutality is a fruit of the brutality that our preschoolers experience at a very young age in our education system. She's saying that the police brutality is a fruit of it. She's saying that these kids, these young boys, have started to become departmentalized. They're starting to be pointed out even in preschool. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, the cavalry ain't coming. The creek done rose and the levee has given way. It's up to you to save you. You have to take an ownership. We have to take ownership of our own community. This is why liquor stores are in our community more than computer stores. This is why we have ran down buildings instead of high skyscrapers in our community, because we are not paying attention to what our youth are experiencing. A couple weeks ago, Dr. Jackson, two series ago, I had our youth on here, young adults on our site. And one of the things that he brought out in the old African proverb, it was when they greeted each other, we say, hey, how you doing? Where you working at? What's going on, right? That's our language. But in an old African proverb, they always ask when they went into another village is, how is the youth? Because your youth is a good indicator on how strong your village is. So we must understand that when we criticize our youth, we're criticizing ourselves. And when we don't invest into our youth, we're not investing into ourselves. So it's important that we bet on ourselves rather than allowing ourselves to be defined by what everybody else is saying. So I got some questions that the people have asked Dr. Jackson, and I'm gonna do some bullet points, okay? What is 3 things, just identify 3 things, what we can do to help our kids be successful in this present environment that they're in? 3 things that we can do.
Read, and read. I would say the first thing.
Did y'all hear what she said? She said, what you must do is that we must start to read to our kids and let our kids read to us. Okay?
Yes.
Read to our kids, let our kids read to us. So reading is the first thing that we must do. Okay? I'm putting this on our system.
The second thing that I would encourage us to do, and this is fairly new, and this research really needs to get into the schools. Neuroscientists, they report that when we stopped our kids from counting with their fingers, we actually stopped their numbering development.
Okay, so I want to stop right there. First thing we got to do, read to our kids, increases our kids' vocabulary. 2, we need to go back to our kids and let them start counting on their fingers, 1, 2, 3, because that's hands-eye coordination. Okay, so that's what
they say about that. They call that finger prediction, and it enhances their learning because when they actually perform a calculation, their brain is involved in a complex dynamic communication process, and that brain is communicating in different parts of the brain, and the main one is the visual cortex. So you're right on the money with that eye-hand thing.
So once again, so we have these kids that are superstar athletes. Remember, we learn from the right side of our brain, right? We don't learn from the left side of our brain. So when we're counting on our hands and fingers, that's a natural thing. So what we consider fidgety is that kid's ability to learn. Okay. That's what we're missing. We're condemning the learning process for our own youth. We want that kid to sit there in a tension position and never move. But when he goes home and deals with his mom and his dad and his uncles and his aunts and his cousins, they're running around the house. They're giving each other high five. They're hugging one another. We are an emotional people. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So when we're talking about athletes that can't learn, they said that they can't learn. No, they can learn. They just learn from physical interaction. We're not the type of people that's going to go sit at a desk for 8 hours and not do nothing. That's not our culture. That's not us. We like to talk. We like to have music. We like to have song and dance. We like to communicate. We actually are learning through our body expression. So this is what she's talking about. What else are we saying? What's the third thing?
The third thing that I point out is we got to find, if we don't have the skills to help them, we have to find someone who does. We have a cultural conflict between Afro-American students and the middle-class schools, the schools. See, a teacher might go over in the classroom problems, math problems 1 through 10, and then she gives 11 through 20 as a homework assignment. Now, she's expecting the parents to help the kids with the 1 through 20. They didn't go over that step. The parents don't know how to do it. So the kids just left out there. So we got to find a way to make sure that their needs come in. We got to find somebody that can help them if we can't, or maybe we both can learn together.
Okay. One of the things that my mom did with me, my grandparents had maybe a third grade education, third or fourth grade education. So one of the things that she did for me is she said, Cepeda, write it down and we're going to learn this together. Okay.
Right.
That gives that confidence that sitting around the table. But what has happened is in today's society, Dr. Jackson, is this. When that kid goes home, that kid is with his brothers and his sisters, and mom and dad is not there because they have to go to work. So,
or outside with friends.
Outside with friends. So what we have to do, it takes a whole village to raise the family, right?
Yeah.
It takes the whole village to raise that kid. We have to get back to the aunts and the uncles being active in our lives. We have to get back to the preacher, the teacher, the educator. You know, I remember when I grew up, the community that I was in, this is right before busing took place, is that the teachers in our community were also, once we left the school, I would have to go over Miss Edgerton or Miss Jordan's house to actually get some more tutoring. Okay. This was outside of the school. And then if I didn't get it then, those teachers were best friends. And then they would come over to my mama's house and they would be hanging out. But these are people who were actually teaching us during the school. Okay. So
exactly. It was a culture.
Yeah, it was a culture.
In the grocery store and in the beauty shop and at church. They live their culture.
Yeah. So, and you know, I'm thinking of W.B. Du Bois, and he talked about the talented 10th, and while the talented 10th will always rise up to the top. But all of these people were educators. So we must begin to get back to the YMCAs, the gyms, the Boys and Girls Clubs, the church, the businesses in our community. Those kids are yearning to learn from us what to do, correct? Is that what you're saying? So make sure. So what we're saying is we got to have quality teachers. Now, a teacher is not just a person who is who's in the school. A teacher can be that alcoholic on the side of the street that says, hey, son, come over here and tell me what your alphabet is. Tell me how to say your alphabet. And if you can tell me how to say your alphabet, here go $1 that you can go down there and get some candy.
Yep.
That's what we got to get back to. Okay?
You know, parents, it's very possible. Parents are younger these days for a parent to be 13, a grandparent to be 26, a great-grandmother 39, and a great-great-grandmother 52. So it's kind of difficult for us to say, okay, parent up. These kids, we got to help them. We got to go back to whether we do it at the church, at the clubs, the Y's or whatever they have now.
So what we got to do is inspire our kids in our school system, and we got to have us in our school systems, and we got to have opportunities in our school systems, and it got to be us. It has to be us. And I'm thinking, Dr. Jackson, now that I'm thinking about it, it's very clear. How would it be that if you had a Hispanic kid that was going in to learn English, and that kid was supposed to learn English and never was able to translate it in Spanish? Somewhere along the line, somebody got to translate that information to that kid in a form that he can digest. And that to me is very powerful what you said.
Yes, exactly. That's how it fits together.
Wow. What are some of the things that you do when you're doing tutoring for young kids? What are some of the things that you do, Dr. Jackson?
I'm old school. I was blessed to get my training from Dr. Gwendolyn Levert, who was in the Marion Community Schools, and research strategies, brain-based strategies. We use rhymes. There's about 37 rhymes that we can teach our kids that will give them access to over 500 different words. For instance, ACK. I would give a child that, and I give them a sheet of the alphabet, and I say, okay, let's start with A. And they would start with A, and I said, every time you come to a letter of the alphabet that you can make another word, I want you to make another word. So they come to B, back, T, back, J, jack. So we take these 37 rhymes, and we teach them over 500 different words, and that enhances their reading skills. We also teach reading in the content. If they're doing math, we teach reading. There's reading problems, word problems that you have to find out the missing variable, the unknown, the variable, and then how they relate to each other. We went back to the basics, the vowel pattern chart.
Wow.
I heard the kids do the close, open, silent E, all the R, the vowel, the pumpers and the whiners, and the C plus the LE. So we go all the way back. I go all the way back.
So,
I use fingers, I use charts.
Wow. So you do a lot of visual, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what do you think about these sight words? Is that a good tool to use?
I think the sight words are awesome.
Okay.
There's so many words that don't play fair. And when our kids are given sight words, parents, please hear me if you don't hear nothing else. Make sure they are learning those sight words. A gnat. Most of the kids go N-A-T. It's G-N-A-T. There's so many words that is not fair, that are not fair. So what we need to do is make sure our kids are utilizing those sight words in the right way.
Okay. So once again, parents, if your kids, because I know that when my girls was in school, we had sight words and they gave them to them in packages. One of the things that our other kids did, the white kids did, they had groups that they went in and they had competitions on sight words. So they made it fun. Our kids, at the time where me and my wife, when we were raising our kids, we were just grilling them. You got to remember this. But they made it very fun for their kids. Like their kids would go and they would go and stay in an apartment, in a hotel, and it was fun. They would go swimming and all those things, and they would literally have a competition with sight words. And those kids that would have the competition, those were considered the scholar kids. Okay. Yeah. Then when we got to elementary and high school, now this is in Wayne Township, they had different colors, like the Cardinal team and the Beetle team. And these kids, some of those kids that was on the Cardinal team, Those kids was in the chess club. Those kids were on SGA. Those kids were involved in PTO. Those kids was considered the leaders. So you got to understand what those code words were when you're talking about educating your kid in a school system, and you got to know what it was. And it wasn't until me and my wife got involved in the PTO, the Parent Teachers Association, PTA, that we began to understand what these kids were going through and how we needed to position our kids to do other things that the rest of the kids wasn't doing. So parents, if you are a single mom or a single dad, and you want your kid is not properly being trained, you need to call, and I'm going to put her name down here. You need to call Dr. Jackson so that you can figure out what are the code words to get your kid on the right track. Ritalin and behavior problems, it might not be that your kid is having those problems. It might be that the teacher is not passionate. Like Martin Sam said, one of our writers said, it might be that the teacher has a problem. So you got to fill that gap to make sure that your kid is learning. Okay? Because at the end of the day, the cavalry ain't coming, ladies and gentlemen. The creek is rose and the levee has given way. It's up to us to save us. And we have to bet on ourselves. I teach it all the time. Bet on yourself. You have to bet on your family. You have to bet on your kids. You have to bet that you can get this thing done. We have to change the narrative of what we are. And she was talking about, and I was thinking, Dr. Jackson, you was talking about rhymes. Well, our kids know the latest raps. So these kids know the latest raps and the latest rap songs. They can remember a whole song. We know that we just got to put it in a format to where our kids can learn. So that's what we're trying to do here. This is the platform. Dr. Jackson,
Parent, can I say this to the parents real quick? You are the best advocate that your student has if they're not old enough to speak for themselves. You know their strengths. You know their weaknesses. And therefore, you can assist them. The resources that your child needs, you can say, my child needs this, and this. See a triangle. I wish I was on TV tonight. My finger, I'm just sitting my hand into a triangle. The top of the triangle is your student, your child.
I got it.
Here's one base of it, and teachers at the other base of it. So you're going to support that child.
Okay, so we want to make sure, parents, if you need help, call us, 317-847-2810. I'll put our information in, and you're going to get the proper help to help your kids. Now, we're not going to sit up here and allow you to just say, hey, I'm dropping my kids off and you go do what you want to do, right? That's not what we're doing here. But if you are truly trying to get help for your kid, we want to be a tool to where you can call and we can plug your kid into the right school, into the right educational piece, and we can get the help that you need for your kid. It's time for you to bet on yourself now, okay?
Yes, sir.
We have the platform to where you can bet on yourself. The cavalry ain't coming. The creek and rose and the levee has given way. It's up to you to save you. Now you no longer have an excuse to say little Johnny can't read. Little Johnny can read. You just got to put little Johnny in the proper sport or the proper thing. And what I mean by sport, with the right school system, with the right teacher that's going to inspire little Johnny or little Shaquita to be great. Not good, but great. And we have greatness in our school system. We have greatness in our kids. And we have greatness when we look at the person in the mirror. We just got to find out what's going to unlock it. And Dr. Jackson specifically said, what will unlock that greatness? She said, culture. That's what the key is. We have to understand that our kids are great, and we got to start inspiring our kids in the next generation. Dr. Jackson has given us some great tools. We got to start reading with our kids. We living in a tech age. Dr. Jackson, what are some of the books that you suggest that we start reading to our kids?
I'm going to be honest with you. It doesn't matter. They send home books. They're going to send home books with your kids in their packages. Those books are good books. I'm going to be real frank. I introduced my kids to books that included a lot of Black history because they have never really gotten that much of it.
Hold on. So we don't want to apologize for it. She said, when you're starting to get books that look like your child.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I did for my granddaughter, we was in our school system, and she was in a predominantly white school. And one of the things that my granddaughter started to identify, she said, I don't like myself. So what I did is I went and ordered her some books, and I'm going to post it on my website of a site that you can go to, and it's about 8 or 9 or 10 books. It's not that expensive that you can go, and it just the pictures inspired her to do better than what she was doing. My daughter did a very good job. Single mom did a very good job with making sure that she had the confidence to see herself in those books. And you know me, I'm always going to put business in there. So one of the things that we can start to identify is start telling our kids that they're great. Okay. And
I have a book that I got Eric. It was his first book. My son's 46. And the name of the book is I Want to Be. His very first book. Everything in it is Black. It's from the third world. Architect. There's a Black architect in there. For I, there was an industrial illustrator. Everything in this book is Black. And that's how he chose his career.
So I got Dr. Jackson's information down there. Dr. Jackson, you said that you have written some books yourself, right?
Yes, my books mostly are on relationships.
Okay.
As far as the children's books, the thing that I've done is my dissertation. And again, we looked at teachers' perception of elementary children of color, why they have problems with literacy and difficulty. We looked at teachers' beliefs, cultural sensitivity, and teacher efficacy. And we concluded that they need to match. The teaching style's got to match the students' cultural learning styles.
Okay. So once again, if you have any kids that was from kindergarten all the way up to the 4th grade, and they're struggling, and they're telling you that they're 3 to 4 years behind, 4 grades behind, 2 grades behind, whatever the case may be, call us at this number. Call Dr. Jackson. Her number is going down at the bottom of our screen, or you can inbox me and make sure that you leave your name and number and the age of your kid, and Dr. Jackson will reach back out to you. Now, you don't have a reason for your kid not to learn. The Calvary ain't coming, ladies and gentlemen. The creek done rose and the levee has given way. It's up to you to save you. It's time that you bet on yourself. Okay? Yeah. Dr. Jackson is telling you what the problem is in your kid's school. It's the culture. It's not your kid have a learning disability. Get them off of the Ritalin. Get them off of the medication. Get them off of all of that stuff. Get them with Dr. Jackson, and you will see a change in your kid. I'm a living witness that if you begin to take out time for your kids, that's the best investment that you can have. I'll say it again. If you take out time for your kids, that's the best investment that you can have. When me and my wife, we took out time to make sure that our kids had the proper education, and now they're helping me run my company. And a lot of the things that I can't do, my kids know how to do. That is the best investment that you can have. When I met Dr. Jackson, she had her son, which is what type of barber is he?
He's a master barber.
He's a master barber. That means that this guy was very educated, and that means that he comes into your home and he does it for you. He does all of the things for you inside of your facility. So once again, he was there with his mom, passing out flyers. That's how I met her. When you have your kids involved in your business, that is only going to propel the next generation to be great. We have to bet on ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, it's later for us to sit up here and act like we have arrived and we really haven't. We need to start to bet on ourselves, take out the time to evaluate what is important and what is not. What is important is that our kids are learning. And Dr. Jackson hit it right on the head. She said our kids are not learning because we're not involved in the school system that causes our kids to be able to learn. So we want to make sure that you can actually get the help that you need. Dr. Jackson, do you want to have any closing remarks? We had a great session today. We learned that the reason why our kids are having struggling in the school system is not because they're not in a fluent area. It's not had nothing to do with how much money you got in your account. It has everything to do with the culture. And when you're dealing with culture, it also deals with exposure. So exposure is key. So Dr. Jackson, what's the closing remark? One of the things that you can say that we need to do?
I just want to thank you for having me on your show tonight.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
The last thing I want to share is a quote from Dr. Seuss. And this is the thing that I had posted in my classroom. And it said, or my lab, it says, the more that you read, the more things you know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. And I would tell the kids, you can be locked up in a room, but if your mind is open and you have a book in front of you, you can go across the world.
Wow. So say that again for me. The more that you read, the more that you know.
Yep. The more that you read, the more things you will know. And the more that you learn, the more places you'll go.
Send that to me in the text, and I'm going to put it on my website. So once again, read with your kids. Read with your kids. Read with your kids. I was thinking about my grandmother, and I'm going to close with this. My grandmother, when I got held back, and that was a big to-do in my family. One of the things that my grandmother, who probably had a second grade education, she would write me letters, and I would have to write her a letter back. And so when I wrote her a letter back, she would send me back another letter, and that's how I would get money. So she would put $1 or a quarter. Back then, that was a lot of money, but she would put money in the letter once she sent me. But that got me to reading and writing. But I still was not able to be successful in reading because I really didn't learn how to read on the level that I'm on now until I got to college and flunked out. And then I really took it serious. And then I was able to teach myself how to read and write. But that's so important that we encourage our youth, we encourage our young kids, and we get behind them and teach them how to bet on themselves. And so Dr. Jackson is right. Dr. Seuss was right. But say that one more time.
The more that you read, the more things you'll know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go.
The more you learn, the more places you'll go. Okay, he had it right. The more you know, the more places you'll go. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to come into your home. Thank you for allowing Dr. Jackson. Dr. Jackson, we're going to have you back on here again. Okay, this is not the last time.
It's a media problem.
Yeah, we got to have you on here again. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if your kid is struggling in school, Dr. Jackson is going to help you out. Her number is her email address. Reach out to her. If you cannot get in contact with her, contact me. We want to be a source to where you can come in and be encouraged. If you follow me on Facebook, you saw a couple days ago, you saw where I was featured in Fiesta magazine. Fiesta magazine is the premier magazine that's going to be coming out. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to get that magazine. It's going to be covering exactly what's going to be going on internationally. It's going to be talking about what you're going to be doing in your community. We just had a technical problem. We're going to be able to do all those things that you're talking about. And so Fiesta magazine is a magazine that you'll be able to come in and purchase and learn what's going on in our community. Once again, follow us on Facebook. We're getting ready to amp it up for you. We're going to have quality businesses on here. We're going to have an opportunity where you can come in and learn how to get your finances straight, get your credit straight. If you're trying to go into business, we're going to teach you how to get to the bag. So once again, thank you for allowing me to come into your home and encourage you to teach you how to bet on yourself. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the cavalry ain't coming. The creek is rose, levee is giving way. It's up to you to save you. Bet on yourself. You can't go wrong. You always win when you bet on yourself. Once again, thank you for allowing me to come into your house today and inspire your kids to be great. Your kids are great. Dr. Seuss said they was great. Once again, the last thing you can do is tell your kids, grab them, hug them, tell them that you love them. But more so than that, teach them that you can bet on yourself. Give them an identity that only you as a parent can give them. Bet on yourself because your kids is waiting on it. Once again, thank you for allowing me to come into your house. Thank you, Dr. Jackson, for coming onto our site. Apologize for the inconvenience, but I think we took a lemon and made lemonade out of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to have you all back on the show. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, till next time, keep betting on yourself. Don't give up. If you fall, get back up. Guess what? That was just a learning tool for you to learn what not to do the next time. Once again, thank you. Cavalry ain't coming. Creek and rose. Levee is giving way. It's up to you to save you. Bet on yourself till next time. Next Wednesday, 6 o'clock. Keep betting on yourself. Bye-bye.